Welcome to the roaring 20s of the 21st century. So we begin a new decade. I start my decades counting from year one. The last decade for myself was mostly marked by the beginning of my career. I graduated with my PhD in 2012 and marked by my discovering my identity of being solosexual. I love my relationship with myself a whole lot better than a relationship with any girl. I tried it a few times, and I just love being single. And actually, I made the discovery mostly during the pandemic, if you can believe it. Just before the pandemic, I was planning to propose to my latest girlfriend, but we locked down, and I really realized how much I love being single, and I'm going to keep it that way. So the big hurdle of being single has nothing to do with myself, actually. It has to do with getting others to accept that I like being single. So often, I go out in public, and as soon as people find out that I'm single, whether it be at the workplace or just out in public life, at the workplace, people often have different beliefs than what it really is. They think that I have all this extra time on my hands. Sometimes, well, obviously during COVID-19, our budgets were very constrained, right? People think that I can take most of the sacrifice because I don't have a family to feed. I mean, they don't say it out loud. I wish they did, because then I could defend myself, but they don't. And that's the big problem, right? Or that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is that people think I'm actually looking for somebody. They want to hook me up with somebody else. And that can get tricky too, especially at the workplace. But even outside the workplace, it's very disheartening to think that somebody thinks I'm lonely when I'm having the best time of my life. And that's why I've been talking extensively about that. Anyway, some of my goals for this year, I have a few big ones, nothing crazy here. I want to network more. As much as I love being single, I need to have networks with people who have similar hobbies, especially with my computer game writing. I've been writing computer games for 9 years right now, but I've been doing that mostly all by myself. And oftentimes when I go to the Computer Olympiad, people are writing it as a team. I've actually competed against DeepMind, and I didn't do too badly. I'm very hopeful to see where I stand next year when we go back in person. But it's a very lonely expedition. Oftentimes, it feels like I'm in outer space. You know, I'm just doing all this by myself, and nobody knows about it. It's kind of like a rover on Mars, right? I often feel that way, and I want to network more with people. I want to discover another hobby that's going to help me build my identity, right? The computer games, yeah, I learned a lot from it. It really wasn't my big identity, at least from a social point of view, right? I've been trying new sports lately, especially after we reopened, and there were all this new stuff was open to me, and I realized how much I took it for granted before. I've been taking up bowling recently. When I started at the beginning of the reopening back in May or June, I think my average score was like a 70 or 80. And lately I've been scoring in the 140s, and I'm very pleased about that. And it might be my identity, it might not be. That's what I hope to discover over the coming decade. This past year, my big resolution, but back in 2020, my big resolution was to normalize my relationship with food. The reason I had made that resolution was because of a couple incidents I had where I was in the middle of eating, getting ready to eat, something came up, and I became a nervous wreck. I have this big problem that if I begin a meal, right, let's say I'm trying to see what food I have around here. See, I don't even have any food around me because I'm trying to normalize a relationship with food. But imagine that I prepare some whole wheat spaghetti. Let's just imagine. And I take a few bites, something happens. Unexpectedly, the landlord comes by. We have to evacuate because somebody has COVID-19. You know, go to this other hotel, right? Imagine that happens. I'm in the middle of eating, I have to put it down. I will feel this weird sensation of my mouth continuing to water. And that's when I run into trouble with people and getting into road rage, getting into fights, sometimes even getting in trouble, maybe getting evicted from the apartment or losing my job, or maybe even getting in trouble with the law sometimes. It has happened before. And so earlier in 2020, I made myself fast regularly for 16 hours almost every day, and occasionally for 24 plus hours, because I wanted to get that out of my system. I still deal with that trouble. If I'm in the middle of a meal and I stop eating, or if I'm focused on a YouTube video, or maybe writing a computer game, and I got this bag of chips, and as I'm writing away and I pick up a chip, and oh my God, the bag is empty. And I just get this gap of a feeling, if you will, especially if it's 3 a.m. and I can't go to the grocery to get another bag. And so if I'm by myself, it might not be the end of the world, but the computer game idea that I had, it might suffer, right? Or I can't focus on the YouTube video that I'm watching, right? Maybe I'm watching a video on artificial intelligence or anything like that. You get the idea, right? I can't tell you how many times it has happened. So, but that problem isn't limited to food, right? I need to be more malleable. When something unexpected comes up, I need to be able to quickly float in that direction, right? I have a hard time with that. I get locked into this path. Like, for example, I get ready to go on vacation. All of a sudden, the borders get locked down. I just become a mess. I have a hard time going with the flow and quickly changing course, if you will. I need to get better at that. Anyways, okay. My next resolution, this is another bad habit of mine. I'm a little bit too old to confess that I still love doing this. I love being a bad boy. Give you an idea, many years ago, I started drinking non-alcoholic beer. I haven't been drinking it much during the pandemic, mostly because I've been doing the intermittent fasting. I used to love to drink non-alcoholic beer. And one time, I was 17 years old. My dad was teaching me how to drive. One time we were driving on the road, and before I knew it, I was drinking a non-alcoholic beer while driving. And I just thought that was so funny. And every time I would drive, I would drink non-alcoholic beer and made sure everybody at the intersection would see me drinking and driving. Now, when I think my brother was about 10 years old at this point. I would have been 23 years old. And my parents had left for work one day, and I went outside to wait with my brother at the bus stop to catch the school bus. And I was standing at the corner and drinking a non-alcoholic beer, waiting with my brother, and I made sure everybody on the school bus saw me drinking non-alcoholic beer. I just wanted to be a bad boy, and I still have that problem, even to this day. 6 years ago, I was traveling in San Francisco, and I had learned that San Francisco had this really disgusting problem. People would poop on the city sidewalks, and they would shoot drugs and throw their needles on the sidewalk. And once again, I wanted to be a bad boy, so I rolled up some leaves that I had picked up in San Francisco. I didn't even know what leaves they were. I rolled it up into some paper and I smoked it on the city streets in San Francisco just to be a bad boy. And I didn't have the nerve to take a dump in the middle of the day on San Francisco, but later that night I went behind a tree in the city and I took a dump. I just want to be a bad boy, that's all. And I felt so good. I don't know why. I need to stop doing it. I'm too old for that stuff. I need to be a good law-obeying citizen in the coming decade. I need to. And that will help me network with the right people. Instead of networking with people who just want to poop on the sidewalk and smoke all sorts of weird things, right? Or drink and drive and all that. Sometimes I get into road rage, not because I'm in an angry mood, but just because I want to be a bad boy. You know, passing somebody really fast and honking my horn, or brake checking somebody, or shouting obscenities. I'm not angry most of the time. I just want to be a bad boy. I need to stop. It's going to get me in trouble. It's going to get me hurt. And my last goal, and I've already gotten a head start with it, is I want to move out of the city permanently. I get a lot of acceptance every time I spend time in the countryside. I'm in Wallace, Idaho right now. I spent some time in Missoula earlier in the pandemic, and I hope to mingle more with people here, find my calling here. Maybe I might have to change my career path out here in the mountains. Maybe one of these hobbies that I'm involved in, maybe I'll get really good at it and make a living out of it. Who knows, right? If I can improve my bowling score from 70 to 140 in a few short months, maybe a few more months I'll be in the 200s, and maybe I'll make a living off of that. Who knows? Maybe not, but I'll find some other calling. And hopefully there's other schools here, right? I'm a professor, so I'd rather be living a more peaceful life than trying to make as much money as possible, especially here where everybody can accept me for my choices in life, right? And out here in Wallace, I don't seem to feel an urge to be a bad boy anymore, as much as I did back in the city, right? I don't know. Anyways, I hope you're enjoying your roaring 20s, right? I certainly am. Just the fact that we're in a new decade, I've forgotten about all the problems with the pandemic, and I'm trying to enjoy all the benefits that it has brought to me, especially the fact that I get to live out here in the country, especially just having a fresh start, right? I talked to like with the idea of going with the flow. It's a fresh start. I can forget all the past problems I had with it, right? All right. Happy new decade.